Hi guys, it's Kelly Latavola here, and I am actually doing my very first video for Hero Arts. So today I'm going to be using the Protea flowers and the Deco pattern stencil to just do a colorful sympathy card. It has a purpose. So here, this is actually, I have a new Misty. This is the one that is the combination release from Hero Arts and My Sweet Petunia, and I love it. It's the black one, and it comes with the bar. Really digging the bar. I've always used just the two magnets that come with the original ones, and totally love it. So I'm stamping in Copic Safe ink because I'm going to do a one layer panel. I am going to end up popping it up in the end, but just some masking and, you know, the normal stuff from me. So I am so excited, like I cannot even tell you. I am so excited to be doing this video for Hero Arts. This is going to be part of story time, which you know we usually do later in the video. But I just want you to know that I am wicked excited about it. So here, this is some masking paper. This one's actually from Simon Says Stamp, and it has a backer on it. Now, I had purchased this quite some time ago, but I never really tried it because I do love my Eclipse masking paper. But I have found a side benefit to the masking paper that has a backer on it. Also, I just want to warn you, the editing on this video is a little wonky. Like, you're going to see a lot of stops and starts. And the reason there's a lot of stops and starts is because some of you know that I have a craft retreat that I go to twice a year with my crafty girlfriends. And since we cannot get together, we just can't right now. Nobody can get together. We're social distancing. We are doing a virtual retreat. So I am participating in virtual retreat while I am making this card and video. And that is why there is some times where you'll see me hesitate or like there's some stops and starts, just FYI. So I stamp my masks and then I'm going to fussy cut them out. Here's one thing to know. So these stems for these stamps just kind of stop. And I left a little bit extra on the end. I kind of wish I would not have. And you'll see why this is a problem later. Because anywhere you put masking paper, you're not going to stamp. And so when I go to put my bouquet together, that little piece of extra is going to block me from stamping these smaller flowers in their entirety. I ended up being able to fix it, and I don't think it's terribly noticeable. You let me know when you look at the card. I don't notice it, and I know it's there. So I don't think it's too bad. But so now I'm going to mask that first one and then stamp this one down. And then I will mask that. Now, normally I would have to stamp another mask because I would have two flowers. But because I have the backer paper, I know, I'm going to put down the original mask, so the actual masking paper. And then I'm going to go old school, cheap chicken Kelly. And I'm going to use the backer paper with my Tombow multi-glue. So here I'm just going to, position the stamp where I want it. This is my second one. And I'm going to just, stamp that like regular. And then we're going to move on to turning this backer paper into a mask. Now, I used to do this all the time before I ever bought any sort of masking paper. And while it is me purchasing another product, I am super glad that I switched over to the masking paper. It does work much better. It's less time consuming. I don't know necessarily that it works better. But what I'm going to do here to make this into a mask is, first of all, I wanted to make sure that I was putting the glue on the right side. Second of all, when you put the glue on, you need to take something. I use my finger, and I swipe it all the way to the edge, because if it's not all the way to the edge, when you go to put the ink on the background, you're going to peel up a corner or whatever of your mask. So I swipe them around and make sure they're all good. Then once it's dry, I stick it on my hand, do a couple little taps on my fingers so it's not super sticky. Tombow multi-glue is repositionable once it's dry. When it's wet, it's permanent. So just make sure that you're waiting until it is just tacky before you put it down. I'm using the Deco pattern stencil, and I do the same thing with my stencils that I do honestly with the backer paper. I use the Tamilana multi-glue to make them sticky, so that way I can put them down and peel them off, and there's no issues. For something like this that's super intricate, I really just stick to like the main thicker lines, and I haven't had any issues. I also always take it all the way around the edges. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to tap it with my hands to make sure that it's just tacky. Whenever I use them for the first time, there's almost always a little bit of adhesive left on my paper, but I just get that with either a white eraser or a adhesive eraser. Don't do it with your finger, because you'll put any dirt or ink or whatever that you have on your hands onto your card, and we don't want that. Now, normally I do a like a base of the color I'm using. For, in this case, it's Salty Ocean. I decided I was going to try to see if I could just do the stencil and see how I liked that with the blue and the white. Still don't like it. That's just me. It's because I like a very subtle pattern. I don't like an in-your-face pattern. But if you do like more pattern, you can certainly do it this way, where you can see the pattern more, and not do like the more tone on tone, which is what I'm going to do. I didn't have any issues with my masking paper lifting. But if you do, because sometimes you just have a piece that's like a sharp corner and you keep catching it, and then once you catch it one time, you're basically going to catch it every time. You can use that same Tamilana multi-glue trick to like just put a little bit on the end, blot it with your finger so that it's just tacky, and then stick it back down, and usually that'll be enough to get me through. So here I'm just going to go around it one more time so that it fades out into the white. And now I'm going to use these super fun Glimmer Metallic inks. I've had these for quite some time, and I haven't really had an opportunity to use them. And I'm going to, they come in packs of 2. There's a gold and a silver that come together, and then there's a blue and a purple. There's a red and a green. I'm missing something. There's another pack, I think. And I'm just going to mix these with a little bit of water to add some shimmer to the background. Now, both of them have shimmer, the silver and the blue both do, but it's just like 2 different types of shimmer, because one, you know, is a true silver and then one is more the blue. I could have used them full strength, but I wanted it to be more subtle. One thing to note when you're waiting for this to dry, it's not going to dry, or it's going to take hours. I don't know, I didn't wait that long to dry on this backer paper. So just keep that in mind when you go to peel it off. You'll probably smudge it onto your fingers, and just be aware. I used my tweezers to get a start on all of my masking paper, because I do have on darker nail polish, and I don't want to streak the dark pink, which, by the way, I know you guys always ask. It is it's Sinful Colors. It's my 99-cent nail polish, and I think it's Poisonberry, I think is what it is. I'm going to do a little something later on to extend my manicure and kind of switch it up. I've been doing those a little bit on Instagram. So here I had one little petal that ripped off of the mask. I'm going to remove that, and then we're going to get into the Copic coloring. As far as the Copic coloring goes, it's pretty standard. I did add in an extra color. My original game plan going in here was to only use the darker color for the really dark parts and leave them a little bit lighter. That didn't happen. You know that never happens, because then I feel like it's not dark enough to have like a really good depth, a really good shadows. So I ended up using all 5 colors, totally unnecessary. You can leave out the, in the pink, you can leave out the RV06, the 4 will blend into the 9 just fine. And then when we get to the green, you could actually leave out the, I would either leave out the YG01, which would make your leaves slightly darker, or I would leave out the G05. I would blend the YG03 right into the 17. I think it's 17 that I used. Let me look. Yep, it's 17. So yeah, that's it. Lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest. Lots of flicking in these cases, because these types of flowers, which are actually called sugar bushes, I didn't know that until I Googled it, and you know I always Google them so I can make sure that I'm coloring them how they are supposed to be colored in nature. And they're the beautiful, beautiful pink colors in these types of flowers. I love the sentiments in this set. There's a lot of just general, like wishing you a beautiful day or just for you. But then there's like a feel better and a sending love and sympathy. I'm using the sending love and sympathy. The reason I am is, so a lot of you have asked me, okay, I don't want to scare you. It's not Graham. A lot of you have asked me how my parents and my grandmother have been doing. And so they are good. My aunt has been here since, let me think, the beginning of March. She was going to go home in April, decided that she was going to stay through the Ohio shutdown into May. So she's been here for 2 months. She actually just went home yesterday. But they're good. They've been staying inside. They haven't been going out. My sisters have been picking up their groceries. So really they've been doing very well. I told you before, I thought my mom was insane to bring my grandmother home out of the nursing home because I didn't think that they would be able to like have the energy or the strength, like physical strength to get her in and out of bed, in and out of the potty, all of that. But I mean, I should have known, underestimating my mother. She's an absolute rock star, and she's been, doing all of that. My dad's been helping her to get her in and out of bed. My aunt and my mom aren't strong enough to do that. And so they do try to get her up and like into the chair. Her fracture healed. They took her for her x-ray. This was back, I think, in the beginning of April. They took her for her x-ray, and her x-ray was healed. And no, maybe it was March. I think it was March. Yeah, because we've been shut down since like March 12th up here. So I think it was the 19th they took her. Fracture healed. She can put weight on it. So that makes it a little bit easier if you can get her to put her feet down. So there's the update on Mom and Dad and Graham. But so the other day, the girls were outside in the backyard, and they were barking at the neighbor, Mike. Very nice guy. And Emma doesn't really bark, but Molly just cannot keep her trap shut. And so I went out there, and he was like, oh, the little one, like, I have no issues petting, but the other one, kind of makes me nervous. And I was like, she's fine. She's a big baby. I said, she just needs to know, like, Eric or I need to come out here and have a conversation with you so she knows you're okay, and then it's fine. It's just strangers. If she thinks that you're encroaching on her area or encroaching on her family, then she's, going to get mouthy about it. So we were standing out there talking, and he was, we're just making conversation, or 6 feet away over the fence kind of thing. And he told me that his wife's mother, was in a nursing home, and they haven't been able to see her for 5 weeks. And it turns out she was in the same one that my grandmother was in. And we just kind of talked about some of the, kind of same issues that both of us had. Well, then he tells me that her mom actually passed away last weekend, and they hadn't been able to see her for 5 weeks since the nursing home was on lockdown. And she is a nurse, and so she couldn't have seen her even if they weren't on lockdown, since she's, an essential worker and possibly being exposed. And it just totally broke my heart, because I cannot even imagine not being able to see my mother for weeks on end, and then having her pass away. Like, oh, I mean, I could cry just thinking about it, and I don't even know these people. They're just my neighbors. But so anyway, I wanted to make her a card and drop it off on their porch, just to extend my condolences for her loss. They did say that they were probably going to have to wait to do any kind of memorial service, which is, I mean, most people pretty much in our current situation, that if they want to do any sort of gathering for family, outside of just, a handful of people, it's going to have to wait until after this is over. So yeah, so that's the sentiment was included in the set was perfect for what I wanted to do. So now, moving on to the high point of the video. So, over the years of me card making, I've had several people ask, how do you get on design teams? How do you, start working for people? How do you turn this into something you can make money at or make a living at? And some of those questions I can't answer because I'm not making a living at it. I still, you guys know, work full time, and up until recently had 2 additional part-time jobs on top of a full-time job. So now I'm down to just 1 full-time job and card making. I will probably go back to another part-time job once they are hiring part-timers again at my previous place of employment. The chief was pretty adamant that he would like to bring me back part-time, and of course, I've been there for 16 years, so I would love to go back and help them. But so right now, just the 2 jobs. How do you get on a design team? Well, everybody, I think, once you decide that you would like to do design team work, and it's not for everybody. I never really had any aspirations to get on a design team when I first started. I was just excited that there were people that would talk to me about card making because I didn't really have anybody in my life who would or who understood. So when I first started, I found the Hero Arts Flickr group. And that was such a huge thing. It was such a huge thing. They had their like hero hostesses and like people who would come in and leave encouragement and love for other people. The craft stores, before I found online shopping, my local craft stores, a lot of them sold Hero Arts. It was my first love as a stamper. It was the bulk majority of my collection at home. I would, I told you before, I would, when I bought stamps differently, when I was, I don't want to say just a consumer because that sounds like less than, but before I was doing any design work, when I would save up my little pennies, I would shop in the spring and in the fall. And the reason that is because those were Hero's 2 biggest releases. And always the spring because they always had flowers and I loved them so, so much. But anyway, so I just loved everything Hero Arts. And then I went to the Flickr group and I started, sharing the things that I was making. And I was super encouraged by the people who were creating there. Barb Engler was huge in that group. And she still runs the Simon Says Stamp Flickr Challenge. So that particular platform is still up and running, even though I haven't participated in it in quite some time. But in the beginning, now we're talking like a decade ago, that was like my happy place. I would go there and I would look at what other people were making and I would comment on them and leave love, and Instagram didn't exist and blogs were just, an up and coming thing. And so we all gathered in Flickr. And honestly, I've told Barb this multiple times that if she had not stuck with me and encouraged me, that I don't know that I would have continued sharing. Because I just felt like a lot of you make comments like, oh, I wish I could color like that, or I wish I could do that, or, but you have to, moral of the story, okay? How do you get on a design team that you love? Is perseverance, is sticking with it. So way back then, my goal, I want to do design work for fill in the blank dream company to work for was Hero Arts. That was it for me. That was like top tier. And I remember going out to lunch with one of my girlfriends who was also very into crafting, and I met her through different teams that we were on, and then she ended up moving to my area. And we were talking about it, and, I was like, it's Hero for me, and she, had told me her company that she wished that she could work for, which was totally different than mine. And 2 days later, she sent me a text message, and she was like, Hero Arts asked me to join their design team. But are you upset? Are you I'll tell them no. And I was like, oh my gosh, don't you dare tell them no. You go, you do it. You're going to be awesome. It's going to be fantastic. And I was so happy for her. And then it was what it was. I started working for different people. And eventually it got to the point where, Hero did approach me about doing, joining their design team and doing some catalog work for them and stuff. And the timing was just terrible. The timing wasn't good for me. And I was so heartbroken because I was like, this is it. This is the thing that, like, goal one, week one, day one goals of card making when I decided I wanted to do DT work was Hero Arts. And then I had to tell them no. And so I've been talking with Libby for a long time, trying to find something that was going to be a good fit. And I think that we have found it. I think that we have found something that will work. So could not be more excited to be repping the Hero Arts because they have wonderful products and they're wonderful people and I've loved them for years. And so yay. So that is, I know that it's not the best answer. I know it's not the quick, easy gratification answer. But the bottom line is that you stick with it. You persevere. You keep trying. That's how you get on a design team that you want. And it might take 10 years. Mine sure did. But that's okay. Totally worth the wait. So back to the card real quickly. So now all the coloring of the leaves is done. There is some spaces in between the flower leaves that were masked. I wasn't going to cut all those out. I'm just going to fill it in with a Copic that matches. And then any areas where my mask might have been a little bit off, I'm also going to fill those in with the color that matches. In my case, it was BO2, but it may not always be that way. So just maybe do a couple of test colors to see what works. In order to make the dimension a little bit more dramatic, I'm going to put in some very specific white highlights with just my gel pen. If you get too crazy with them, you can flick a little bit more color over them to kind of hide that. But you'll see when I'm done here, the dramatic difference between this one and the other two. You can just really tell that one kind of pops more. I'm going to outline it just like I always do because that makes me happy. I love the bold black outlines. And then really the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it down a little bit because I wanted, it just felt a little bit off. Oh, I forgot about the shadow. I'm lying to you. I'm full of lies. So I wanted it to come off the page a little bit more, and I'm going to do that with a shadow. Now you could do this with grays and it would totally look fine because shadows are, the absence of light. I wanted to do it with blues because I wanted it to be a little bit brighter. Or you could do it with another color. Like, hey, try it out, see how you like it. So I always do my shadows as if the light source is in the top right, which means all of my shadows are in the bottom left. I'm going to start with my darkest color closest to the image, and then I'm going to work my way out to that BO2, which is what I filled in the other like lighter background colors with. And then we're going to do the sentiment and mount it on just a like pretty pink piece of cardstock because I just felt like the image was a little bit heavy on the left. And so in order to kind of break that up, I'm going to trim off the right. And then I'm also going to put my sentiment on that side. So as far as any other design teams that maybe you would like to get noticed by, I've given you this piece of advice, I think, in the past, but just in case you missed it, my suggestion would be to buy the products that you love. It will, first of all, it'll be noticeable in your work. When you're working with something that you love, you can always tell in your card. If you are working for a design team that tells you you have to use XYZ, I'm actually not a huge proponent of those, and I don't work for them. I just don't, because I know that I will struggle then to use their product, and I don't want the products that I use to be a struggle. I want them to genuinely be something that I love and that I'm excited to use. And so if you are on no design teams and you're looking to get on a new one that you are just like obsessed with their product, make sure that you're making with their things, and then when you're sharing them on your blog, on if you're a Twitter user, if you're an Instagrammer or Facebook, that you are tagging them in it so that you know that they're seeing that you're using their product and that they are seeing what you can do with their product. That's one of the best ways to get noticed, because if you're consistently putting out great cards with their products, then they're going to take notice and they're going to want to approach you. Also, some design teams still do design calls. Not everybody needs an engraved invitation. They'll still do design team calls. So make sure that you're looking for those and, meeting the requirements of whatever they want you to submit or send in. To just, like they taught us in kindergarten, follow directions. So here I'm just heat embossing my sentiment. I did trim it into a label, but because of the way it's written, I felt like the label was a bit clunky. So I'm going to use my scissors to just trim around it to cut it more to the shape of the sentiment. And then I'm going to pop that up on foam. And that's pretty much going to be the whole card. So I will hopefully be back with you guys soon to share another video sometime later this week. Like I told you, I've been trying to keep a few in the hopper so that we don't have no time together and we can keep doing updates. But I hope that you guys are all well and that you're coping with our current situation okay. Sending lots of love and prayers. We're looking at possibly opening up Ohio back anyway, May 1st. I'll be interested to see if they do that. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.